Things are really bad for Warner Brothers Discovery and their latest film, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Just after 2 weekends in theaters, the movie is already heading to digital later tonight. That's right, it will be on digital at midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific on Amazon Prime Video. So let's get into some of these numbers here. I wrote this up over at phantompulse.com. You can find the link in the description below. I encourage you to head on over there, become a paid subscriber, help support us in our fight against this woke ideology that is trying to destroy our movies and television shows and is trying to destroy our culture at large. So according to the numbers, The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim only grossed $15.7 million globally. $15.7 million globally. It earned $7.8 million at the domestic box office and another $7.9 million internationally in less than 2 weeks. The film had an opening weekend of just $4.5 million domestically. In its second weekend, it declined 73% to just $1.2 million. That was just this past weekend. Its daily numbers have also significantly declined on Christmas Eve, which is the last date posted on the numbers. The film posted its worst daily total to date with just $185,000 in grosses. Absolutely abysmal. This film died on the vine. Box office analyst OMB Reviews predicted that the film will only make somewhere between 21 and 30 million by the end of its run. I actually think it might be lower because it's already seemingly leaving the box office and is going to digital. And at a $30 million budget, that's just not going to do it, he said. $31 million estimated losses, that's a 2.5 times multiplier. We can imagine that it's probably going to be closer to between 40 and 50 million when all is said and done, though. Obviously talking about the losses there, 40 and 50 million in losses. Not the biggest flop in the world, but definitely not, I think, what they were expecting for this movie. And had they actually focused on what was in the appendices of J.R. Tolkien's work, if they had actually given a story in a movie that fans wanted instead of taking a random side character who was unnamed and then making it entirely about her for the sake of some type of messaging, then guess what? People actually would have gone to see this and been going back to see it multiple times over. Hard to disagree with that, even with it being animated. So I think some really good analysis there from a friend of the channel, OMB Reviews. Given the film's box office disaster, Warner Brothers is already putting the movie up for sale on digital stores. As I said, you can see here on Amazon Prime Video, the film will be available to watch at midnight on December 27th Eastern Time and 9 p.m. Pacific Time on December 26th. You can see that right here. It says release date December 26th, 2024, 9 p.m. Pacific Time. Obviously, that is midnight Eastern Time. So they're already going to digital with this movie. That is how badly it did. Didn't even make it 2 weeks before they went to digital. I think 2 weeks is today or is yesterday in theaters. I think it's probably today because it's Thursday, right? Despite the box office failure, the Cope out of Hollywood, according to Variety, is that the film was, quote, fast-tracked to ensure that New Line Cinema didn't lose the film adaptation rights for Tolkien's novels, while Jackson and the teams behind Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies were working on 2 new live-action films for 2026 and beyond. So this is total cope. They're trying to say that, like, oh, well, it doesn't really matter how bad this movie does. Doesn't matter how awful this movie is. They were just doing it to keep the film rights. This is absolute cope right here. Because what they've actually done is they've damaged the brand. They're damaging the brand. They're damaging the brand even further. Obviously, I think the Tolkien estate has a lot to do with this because they keep greenlighting these absolutely horrendous projects. Obviously, greenlighting the Rings of Power, which has done significant damage to the Lord of the Rings brand. And then obviously here, War of the Rohirrim doing massive damage to the Lord of the Rings brand by literally trying to make up some story with this unnamed female character that they call Hera in the movie and try to sell it as a Lord of the Rings movie when it has nothing to do really with what actually happens in the appendices with the story of Helm Hammerhand. As OMB Review says, this character is literally unnamed. There's one sentence where she is referenced. So this is total cope right here. And they lost $50 million to maintain the rights. Okay. Regardless, the film is a loser, and producer Philippa Boyens and her team at Warner Brothers have no one to blame but themselves. They injected their feminist agenda and put it front and center in the marketing. Obviously talked about this in the past. You go back to June with this interview she gave to Entertainment Weekly, where she discussed why they chose to make Hera the main character. She said, in the appendices where the story is drawn from, we get these quite interestingly drawn male characters, and then we get this young female character who is never named, and that was really interesting to me. The unnamed character, female character, is never named, is interesting to her. Okay. We know Helm has a daughter, and we know that she was central to the conflict that happened, but myself, and especially screenwriter Phoebe Gittins, were drawn to her. We could feel the weight of being that unnamed daughter, which immediately piqued our interest. Who was she? How did she live? So that's literally a self-insert for the screenwriter and Philippa Boyens. And she was telling us that all the way back in June. Hilariously, she saw the writing on the wall ahead of the release because she tried to do this like big damage control interview with IGN, which if you're literally trying to do damage control, going to IGN is probably where you should not be going, given the fact that IGN has a reputation of spouting all kinds of woke ideology, not being too pleased with the people that actually read their site, their supposed customers, because it's not their customers, right? Their customers are people like Philippa Boyens, like the video game studios that pay them to write a bunch of puff pieces. But anyways, she went to IGN, tried to do some damage control, and said, there's nothing woke about this, guys, if you're out there, except you literally told us it was a self-insert. You literally told us you're putting this feminist agenda in it. All the clips we saw from the film where it was obvious feminist agenda, girl boss, etc., which is what we've seen time and time again from these people in Hollywood. They try to replace the male characters with female characters, and that is done to push feminism. So you weren't fooling anyone. No one bought this, and you paid. You paid the price at the theaters, at the box office, and your film didn't even last 2 weeks before going to digital. That is how poorly you did. And I think you've significantly damaged the hopes of the upcoming live action films as well, because she's attached to them as well, being the producer, I think. And I think with her involvement now, regardless of her involvement in the original trilogy, I think she's bad news. She's bad news, and she should probably be fired because she clearly has an agenda and she wants to push it in the movies that she is making. And one can only assume that she will be trying to do that in the upcoming films from Andy Serkis, The Hunt for Gollum, and then whatever else they plan on making after that. But this is really bad news for people who want actual real adaptations of The Lord of the Rings, because we're seeing the brand be absolutely massacred, and they're doing it on purpose. But that's good news, too, that the brand, people are rejecting the ideology that is being injected into it, this fake ideology, this feminism, etc. People are seeing through it, not being exposed to it, and choosing not to watch it. So that is really good news right there, that more and more people are wisening up to a lot of this stuff and saying no, saying absolutely no to it, and are showing that they have no interest in watching it. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, and to always, always speak the truth.